Hello, everyone, and welcome, and thank you for being patient. We had a little bit of but anyway, we're back. So I hope you're all having a wonderful day so far, wherever you are, and thank you so very much for sharing your time with us, because it is delightful to have you here, and we're really excited. I am beaming today. Beam me up, Scotty, because I have a wonderful show in store. And it's even better knowing that you're all here with us. So remember, any point in time within the show you want to call in, chat with us, please, 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 please keep this as an open invitation that you are more than welcome to join us. And if you can, and you have a landline, call us on 919-518-9773. Or if you're calling from Timbuktu, you can call us on Skype. And that would be at computers, that's plural, the number 2, voice. And you also can sign your name right next to the video and a nickname. We don't need to know your real name if you don't want to. And just take part in the chat. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and we'll read the questions and we'll get back to you. And just, we're here together. And so whether we can see you or not, we feel you, and we want to all be connected. So I just want to, can I say good morning to you? Good
Of course, yeah.
I'm not. It's been busy. How are you?
I'm just fine. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you.
Your week so far?
Good.
Good.
Good. Busy. I'm always into something. Got these hands into something.
And
so
the weather's getting nicer.
The weather. Oh my God! Thank the Lord.
Finally, yeah.
I'm so delighted that we have some sunshine and some warmth, and I don't have to walk around freezing. Right. So Amnon is our producer, and then Chris is out in the chat, who is our associate producer, or everything else under the sun. So here we go, on with the show. I am so excited today to have a very special friend of mine come on to the show. For the last several weeks, I've been doing the show by myself. We used to have a guest all the time, and then I said, there's some things I just want to share, and things I just want you to share. And I figured, okay, well, I'll do it by myself. But this time, I have this incredible human being joining me today, and his name is Jamie, and I hope I get this name right because I never can, but McConochie. So let's hope I got it right. And Jamie is a certified professional coach specializing in spiritual life coaching. He gained his degree in psychology at Westminster University in London before traveling around India in search of life's big questions, which I'm going to ask him what those questions are, because I know my questions, but I'm not so sure which questions he was looking for. He then became a Hindu monk for 11 years in a multi-faith monastery, learning how to live in communion with the divine. Having studied and put into practice many different spiritual traditions, Jamie combined psychology with his own spiritual experiences to coach others in discovering and enhancing their spiritual life. And with that, and Jamie, I just want to say, is on Skywire with me, which is a show I do on Google+. And I am just so blessed to have him as part of our panel. So with that, let me introduce to you Jamie. Hey, Jamie.
Hi, Marilyn. Thank you. Thank you for that lovely introduction.
It's a pleasure.
Hi, Anand and Chris and everyone else who's watching. So hello, everyone. And thank you so much for that introduction. Really, really very nice. There's such a lovely energy you project, Marilyn. I always love conversations with you. And I just want to say you're looking absolutely lovely today.
Oh, thank you.
It's reflecting that energy. It's so beautiful how when somebody has that lovely spiritual sparkle about them, it expresses through their outward appearance and the way that they present themselves to the outside world. So I love that. Thank you very much for welcoming me here today.
My pleasure. So everyone out there, need I say any more about this man? I'm just going to turn the mic over to him, because he is, there's so much I want to know. And he too is just radiates this light. And Jamie has a way of speaking that when you ask him a question or you talk about something, he just has a way of, he has this knowing of how to put into words something that you just, is just so out there and just makes so much sense. So, Jamie, I know one of the biggest topics on my mind that I want to talk about is the fact that you are a former monk. So how did that come about?
Well, gosh, that is actually a long story, but I'll give you the short version to save time. It came about, where to start? I suppose I could start by saying it came about from early childhood. That's when, basically, as soon as I was capable of thinking about external stimuli from a very young age. I can't remember how old I was. I mean, maybe about 5 or 6 years old or so. Um, I was always looking around and thinking that there's more to the world than what we see and touch. Um, I had a kind of a natural inclination towards sort of spiritual topics. And yeah, I was always searching for something, even as a child. Um, when I was a teenager, I made a series of chance discoveries through some books that I discovered. Quite curious. That's another story in itself, how I came across these books. But I'm sure that's a common experience. I think a lot of people have similar experiences where you kind of supposedly by chance, you just pick up a book and it just triggers something. So that was kind of the start of the process, I suppose, the start of the journey. Yeah, to keep this a bit short without rambling on too much. Yeah, I continued searching and reading and studying and trying different things, trying meditation, trying yoga. Then I went to university to study psychology. I went to India, as you said in the introduction. I traveled around India, visiting various kind of gurus and yogis and things like that. And then I wound up back in the UK, where I came across the monastery, which I eventually ended up in, which is called Scandavel Monastery. They have a website if anyone's interested. Just check out Scandavel is Skandavale. And so I ended up going there. I visited the monastery a few times. My very first visit to the monastery was the most amazing experience of my life. And it was basically me reconnecting with the journey that I've been on for thousands of years. So we're all on a journey, a spiritual journey, I believe. Um, as you probably guessed by now, I believe in reincarnation. So for me, it's been a journey through many, many lifetimes. And some lifetimes you kind of come back and pick up that journey, and other lifetimes you kind of get distracted by life and you kind of lose the journey, and then the next lifetime you come back to it. So in this lifetime, I came back to it basically, and my first visit to the monastery was like, it was incredible. I mean, I'll just share you very quickly the story of what happened. I went to the monastery the first time. It was in the night when I arrived. I'd never been to anything like this before. I mean, I'd heard about it, but I'd never experienced anything of this type. It's a very devotional way of worship. It's bhakti yoga, and they do a lot of Hindu bhajan singing and Hindu ceremonies and multi-faith stuff. And I'd never really experienced any of that before, but I felt drawn to it. And I went the first service was early in the morning, starts at 5 o'clock in the morning. We arrived late at night in the monastery. It was dark, so I didn't really know what the place was like. And I woke up early the next morning, ready for the service. And I went into the temple, like a bit sleepy and bleary-eyed, and kind of thinking, what's going on? What's this all about? What's it going to be like? I had no idea. And we were sitting in the temple. It was very cold. It was in the middle of winter. We were waiting for the service to start. And then it was about to start, and they opened up the front part with these curtains. They kind of open up the inner sanctuary before they start. And the service starts, this is very typical of Hindu services. They start with like a lot of noise. They have this conch shell, which is kind of sounds like a sort of a trumpet blasting. They ring bells, they chant, and they wave this flame around. It's very intense. And I'd never experienced anything like that before. And as soon as the service started, it was just like something blasting away in my mind. It was like a switch being switched on in my memory. And it was just like, wow, I'm home. I've come back home. I've come back to what I've been living for the past 1,000 years, 10,000 years, 100,000 years. I don't know how long, but it was just this memory of my previous lives, and I use plural because I think I've done this many times. My previous lives of associating with the aspects of God that have come through the history of the human history of the world, all the different religions, different traditions. I've passed through all of those different traditions of worshiping God, and this particular night or morning, I should say, this particular moment was a ceremony that brought all of those religions together in one synchronized worship. And that was for me was just like, wow, I'm just getting all my memories coming back of all my previous lives worshiping in different religions. And it all came back to me in that intense instant. And I knew at that moment, okay, wow, this is it. I'm back. I'm back on my path, back on my journey. So I have to stay here. I have to become a monk. And I knew instantly that I was going to become a monk in that temple. It then consequently, it took me a while before I actually did become a monk because I had to finish my studies at university, and I had to kind of resolve. I was in a relationship at the time. I had to kind of sort out, what was going to happen with my relationship. I had to split up with her. That was a big challenge.
You said split up with her. What did you say? Split up?
Split up.
Okay.
I had to split up with her to become a monk,
Okay.
obviously.
All right. Hold on. Just from where you are now, because I want to go
Yeah,
back before we go.
sure. Yeah, there's
First
quite a
of
lot.
no. It's fat, and I could listen to you all day. So, and that's so I have to draw myself away and ask you. I have to get into my doing, and ask you some specific questions. So, you first of all, you started about your childhood. So, how old were you?
Um, Well, I was around about, I think somewhere between the ages of 6 and 8, I think, was when I realized that there was something eternal about the human nature. That's
How
when
Wow. How does a 6 year old or an 8 year old or a 10 year old or a 12 year old, how do they do that? How did you do that?
well, in my case, it was like you you're not afraid of death because you see death around you. Animals die, your pets die. You hear of friends or friends' relatives who died, and you see in films and TV people dying, and on the news. It's everywhere. Death is all around us.
Right.
But but I just had this kind of I just knew that death was nothing to be afraid of. It was just a change of state, a change of condition. And I can't explain it. It wasn't like an intellectual understanding. It was just this kind of knowing and this confidence. It's like for me, it was just normal. And when I saw the adults in my life being so distraught and upset by the death that in their lives, I was like, why are you so upset? It's just the end of this particular journey. It's just the change of this particular condition. There's nothing to be upset about. And that's how that was my perspective as a child.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I had this feeling that we are immortal souls. We are eternal spirits. There's no such thing as death, real
Mm-hmm.
death.
So, did you grow up in any particular faith growing up?
No, and that's
Uh,
the wonderful thing. That's the wonderful credit I give to my mum, because she did a fantastic job of bringing us up, three boys. My parents were divorced when I was very young, and so I really respect and admire my mum for bringing up three boys on her own, doing such a fantastic job with us. She brought us up in a very neutral kind of environment, religiously speaking, I mean. So she didn't try to kind of bring us up in any religious way. Um, and neither did she prevent us from exploring religious ideas. Um, I think the first kind of religious ideas I was exposed to was through the school, where they were, as it was a Christian school, so sometimes we would read the Bible and stuff like that. So that was my first exposure to religion. And I immediately found a connection that I had with Jesus. Um, and I just sort of he felt like a friend to me, like an old friend when I first started reading about him. I think I was about 8 or 9 years old at that time. And so my mum brought us up to say, okay, if you're interested in that, that's fine. You can carry on being interested in that. And then when I started getting interested in other more unusual stuff like Hinduism and yogi philosophy and stuff like that, my mum was like, oh, that's cool. That's interesting. Yeah, yeah. So she just liked the fact that I was curious and was kind of eager to explore these things. So she did a great job, and I really love her for that. How she brought us up.
Wow, that is special. She sounds like a somewhat of a hippie type, you know. Create and was she creative, an artist? Your mother?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say she was a hippie. She definitely wasn't a hippie, but um, she was definitely very creative, very artistic, um, but at the same time really down to earth. And I think that helped me to lay my own foundation of down to earth spirituality, practical spirituality. So, my mum's main priority was get food on the table, basically, and that's what anybody's priority should be. You've got to be responsible about your life and about what you're doing to make sure you've got that basic fundamental security in your life before you can start to sort of meditate, spend hours meditating. What's the point of being spiritual and meditating if you can't even put food on your table? That's completely not spiritual at all. So I kind of got that from my mum. She concentrated and worked really hard to provide for us three kids. But at the same time, she had another dimension to her, this kind of very creative, artistic, and I would say spiritual dimension. Although she wasn't overtly religious, but she does have a very spiritual dimension to her, which perhaps contributes to also the way I think.
Mm-hmm. So this notion of like down to earth spirituality is 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 real. I mean, it's how would you define that? I understand what you mean, but
Yeah,
but put it into your words because I love how you describe things.
sure. Yeah. Well, it's this was very much the emphasis of the training in the monastery is that God is practical. The divine is a very practical, if you want to say, I use the word person because I like to relate to the divine as a personality. So, and I relate to the divine as divine mother. So I often use the word mother when I'm talking about God. And mother is a practical, very practical. The feminine side of God is like any kind of, well, women in general are very practical, I think, generally, aren't they? They like to get things done. They usually, a lot of women, I think, in comparison to men, women are more, get things done. Get the pay the bills, feed the kids, um, do the things that we have to do. So Divine Mother is also very practical. In the monastery, we were trained to first, before anything, the first thing that came in our responsibilities was feed the animals, look after the animals. If you didn't feed the animals, if you failed to get up in the morning and give them their food or repair their shelter when it was raining or do any of that hard work, then you were not being spiritual because you were not fulfilling the practical responsibilities of the divine. So that is also really important in spiritual growth because if you don't have your feet on the ground, if you're not rooted in that earthy, practical energy, then once you start accessing the more powerful divine energies, you can become unbalanced. And I've seen that a lot. People who spend so much time meditating and doing spiritual practices, but they're not rooted in the ground, they become unbalanced. And that can express itself through emotional, psychological disturbances, problems in their life, in their relationships, in their interactions. So you really, first things first is you've got to be practical in your life before you even start to access the higher spiritual energies.
I think that's brilliant. I mean, that's what we talk about listening, right? You're not listening if you're not being practical and taking care of your family, taking care of your home, taking care of your bills. It's easy to say, "Well, I'm just going to meditate it away." It's not going to
Yeah,
work, right? So
absolutely.
that's very cool. So okay, so you end up, and one of the things I also wanted to, which I also want to kind of touch upon, is this notion of having many lives, and I do believe in reincarnation as well. So, but I think it's very interesting to talk about how when we live our current life, how touching upon our whatever we can from our previous lives is can be confusing, can be shocking, can be
Yeah,
extraordinary, can be fun, could be scary, could be all kinds of things, right, Jamie?
yeah,
Mm.
absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree. It's for me, I think the relevance of your previous lives, the relevance is limited. There's a limited relevance. Your previous lives should only be relevant to you if it is to contribute to your spiritual growth and your psychological well-being. If it doesn't contribute to that, if it's just idle curiosity or uh, yeah, just frivolous interest, then leave it alone because that can distract you from your true purpose, which is to grow spiritually. So I'm often cautious, even a little bit suspicious, when people use past life regression techniques to, as a therapy. My personal opinion is that can be useful, but only if it has a direct relevance to your spiritual growth and your psychological well-being. Um, if it's distracting you from growing and becoming a healthy human being, then leave it alone. It's not relevant anymore. Now is the time when you should be living. Now is the present moment. Now is where you're learning your lessons. Now is where you're growing and evolving. This is where you should be giving your full attention to this life here and now.
Yeah. So if it's not for your highest good, it's not. And whatever information you can glean from previous lives is all here to support our highest goods.
Absolutely, yeah. I think sometimes it can be useful to kind of give you a little bit of a boost, a little bit of inspiration, like what happened with me when I first discovered the monastery. I had this tremendous boost of inspiration and energy when I realized that that was my previous life connection. But apart from that, I didn't need to dwell in that past. I continued in the present moment, but I used that energy as an encouragement. So in that sense, it's very beneficial. But otherwise, the divine is here in the present moment. You don't need to spend time in your past lives.
So it's not. It's you. As far as you're concerned, there is not an extreme necessity or necessity to connect with previous lives to help you figure out this one.
Absolutely. I mean, probably it depends on different people, on different individuals. I think every individual has a different situation, it's a different case. So I wouldn't say, as a general rule, or kind of like a generalization to ignore your previous life associations. But I would just say that um, it's not as relevant as you might think. The most relevant thing is to be in the present moment now. That's the most important thing.
That makes sense. Okay, so I want to go back to the monastery. Okay, and you have this big explosion, and you decide to go back to school, finish school, and to become a monk and to break up with her. So go ahead,
Yes.
give us the rest of the story. Now it's it's
You
not it's not just getting good. It's been good, but it's really getting good now. Go ahead.
okay? So you want some more juicy details
Yeah,
now?
I want it all, and then I'm going to tell you all about what's coming up on Skywire that we're going to talk about as well because it's really exciting. So go ahead, Jamie.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yeah, I was in a relationship at the time, a serious relationship, and I was definitely at a crossroads where either the relationship was going to continue and get more serious, perhaps even lead to marriage in the future. Or I was going to follow the call of my spirit, which was to become a monk. So obviously I couldn't commit, I couldn't, I would have done a huge disservice to my girlfriend at the time to stay in a relationship when my heart was yearning for something else. That would have been extremely discourteous, extremely deceptive to do that. So I had to be honest to myself and be honest to her. That was my heart's yearning. That was the calling. And if I did not follow that and honor it, I would never be really happy. So the breakup itself was really traumatic, really tough, and hurt a lot. And it took me a long time to get over it. But it was a necessary thing for both of us to continue to grow. So yeah, I basically I is listening, as you talked about before. It's listening to what your heart is telling you. And when I say your heart, I mean your intuitive heart, not your emotional heart. So that was what my intuitive heart was telling me. That was my calling, my yearning, and I had to follow that. So yeah, it was difficult. We had a chat, a conversation. It took, I can't remember now, it's a long time ago, but I think we spent like a couple of weeks kind of going through that process.
Jamie, how long did that explosion last?
Well, it kind of there was like one explosion, and then there continued to be a series of further explosions throughout the course of the 11 years in the
But
monastery.
when you first got there and the decision was made, how long did that was it moments? Was it seconds? What happened?
It was I would say it was like at a maximum peak of intensity for the duration of the service that morning, which was, I think it was about 1 hour. So during that hour service, I was just like on, cloud nine, the
Wow.
maximum. After the service, obviously it diminished a little bit, but I had this kind of glow about me. I had this kind of buzz in my body, in my whole of my cells, all of my being was just buzzing from that, which lasted for months. That buzz lasted for months. But then, as I said, I continued to have more and more of these kinds of explosions. I don't know if you could call them explosions, but like bursts of intense spiritual grace and energy.
Because when I've experienced those they could be seconds, they could be an experience that you have. I've realized that, of course, part of keeping that feeling going, keeping that feeling alive for me, has always been to be in a state of gratitude and appreciation. That always helps maintain it, but it doesn't generally maintain for over a period of time. So it's extraordinary to listen to you and to imagine. I mean, everybody out there, just imagine what that is like. And I don't think it's just for Jamie. I think that those potential bombs are for all of us. So just while I'm talking, before I turn it back over to Jamie, I just want to also remind you all that you are more than welcome to call in 919-518-9773. That's on a landline. And then you can also connect with us on Skype at computers, that's plural, 2K voice. You will come in on voice. You won't come in on video like Jamie is. You'll come in on voice. So that is computers, plural, 2K voice. And we have a very active chat going. So you are more than welcome, again, to put your name, nickname, whatever, on the little line and click whatever it says. And then you'll be part of the chat. You don't even have to talk. You can just read and listen. So that's for everybody, right, Jamie?
Absolutely. You made a really good point there, Marilyn. I'm so happy you made that, because I realized that, I didn't really allude to that. These kind of experiences are not just for monks, not just for people who live in a monastery, but anyone can have that experience in any aspect of your life. And it doesn't matter who or what you do or what you are, you can achieve that. I call it grace because it is grace basically. It's intense spiritual experience, and it can come to you in any moment. Typically, it doesn't last for a long time um, because you kind of have to come back down to earth and deal with the nitty gritty of everyday life.
Right.
But yeah, absolutely, like you said, Marilyn, you can achieve that, or you can create the conditions for that by having that kind of attitude of gratitude, of appreciation, of basically of putting others before yourself, um, kind of going above your ego, going beyond your own limited desires.
So that's
All of those,
practical spirituality. Because if you are not practically spiritual, then you are in your ego. That is not spirituality, right?
exactly. Uh huh.
Right.
Exactly.
So you're in the monastery. You have then so you broke up with your girlfriend. You've had several conversations, very painful. Then take us. What's the next step?
Well, the next step was, I guess it was kind of adjusting to monastic life. That I guess that was the next step. Because on the one hand, I had this tremendous inspiration and energy, encouragement and grace from the experiences in the monastery. But on the other hand, there was the hardships of monastic life, the tough routine that we had, the discipline, and all of those things. They were difficult to adjust to. Um, it was a difficult routine, you know, that you had to get up at 4:30 every morning, and we had a number of services throughout the day, and in between the services, we were doing very hard physical work around the farm with the animals and so on. So you would get to bed late at night, very tired, like go to bed about 11 o'clock, sometimes 12 o'clock or 1 o'clock, and then have to get up again at 4:30 the next morning. And this was 365 days a year. There's no holiday. There's no, you don't get any breaks. So that was the next step, I think. It took me a couple of years to really adjust to that.
There's some specific questions that I want to ask you that people on the chat are asking. So
Sure.
they're specific. So how old are you?
I'm 40.
40.
Well, although I consider that to be the age for my body, it's not really me. It has no meaning to me. My
Right.
age has absolutely no meaning.
So age has no meaning, period, then.
Exactly.
Okay.
Uh-huh.
All right.
I don't know if I'm 10 years old or if I'm 90 years old. I
That's a
honestly
really
don't
good
know.
point. That's a really good point. That's a really, really, oh gosh, that's a really good point. I'm going to tell my kids I'm younger than they are. That,
Absolutely.
that's a really good point.
Yeah.
Okay. So, okay. And then how long ago did you leave the monastery?
Now it's about, I think it's about 6.5 years, coming up to
Okay.
7 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then we have a question. Chris wants to know, how do you help people um, handle anger?
Anger.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Good question. Excellent question. Yeah, basically, it's that there are two approaches to dealing with anger, not just anger, but any kind of disruptive emotion. There's a kind of a long-term approach, and then there's a short-term strategy. So the long-term approach is basically to cultivate your spiritual practice. So do whatever it is you do to connect with your spirituality on a regular basis. So it doesn't matter what that is. Is it meditation? Is it prayer? Is it yoga? Is it walks in nature? Whatever works for you. Do that regularly, every day, connect with it, and just continue working on that. It's a continuous job, continuous work. But the more you do that, the more you will gain a kind of a control and a handle on those emotions. Then the second thing I do is strategies, short-term strategies, and these are psychological principles, things that I picked up from psychology. Simple things, you know, count to 10, hold your breath. If the anger is occurring in a conversation, and you can feel that anger rising, stop the conversation and walk away, take a break, and let yourself cool down. And you have to use your body to preempt the onset of anger. So in your body, you can feel adrenaline, heart rate starts to go up, you start to sweat. Remember those signals and pay attention to them, because that means here comes the anger, here comes the emotion. Watch out, be prepared, take a deep breath, go out for a walk, distance yourself from the situation. So those are the kind of short-term strategies. So those are the two things which I recommend in harmony, short-term strategies with this kind of long-term approach of connecting with your spirituality.
So this is a very practical, fabulous way of explaining everything, short term and long term.
Uh-huh.
Oh my God, that is just brilliant. Short term and long term. It's not one or the other. You know, I think people tend to pick one or the other. Sometimes the short term, you know, seems to be like just handle the anger now, you know, have a cold, you know, glass of water, you know, apologize, whatever, without the long term, or the long term without thinking that the long term is just going to handle the short term. And that is not the case. You've got to be cognizant of both of those and be working on them simultaneously. And that is easy for our brain and our body and our spirit, our ego to comprehend. Short
Yeah.
term and not right.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
And you rephrased it beautifully, Marilyn. You absolutely perfectly rephrased it. I would also add to that don't. It's important not to feel angry at yourself for being angry. It's very important to understand that it's part of being human to have these emotions. So you have to accept that you have those emotions, and don't get more angry about it, and don't feel guilty either for having those feelings. Very important is to understand that that's part of being human. When you integrate all of these things, you become a more complete human being, which makes you a more effective instrument to serve your divine purpose.
So, you know, I have a question that I don't think I ever thought about or asked. Because I was thinking, you said guilt, and I'm thinking, well, that can't be I mean, that's maybe part of a spiritual practice, is to acknowledge the guilt, you know, be grateful for your guilt, you know, learn whatever you can learn. But if you were going to pick a word that would be a great word that you would use as an everyday word of an action or of something that helps you spiritually, what would that word be?
I think if I could just pick one word, I would say presence.
Mm-hmm.
Presence.
Okay.
You can interpret that word in any way that relates to you best. Accept that word as it relates to you, presence.
You know what word I thought of? Acceptance. And you just said
Acceptance.
accept that word. And I'm like,
So there we go. So you're accepting, you're practicing acceptance in that moment. And I think acceptance and presence, they are two sides of the same coin. Because by being present, you become aware of what's going on inside you. And you can't accept anything if you're not aware of it, right? So
absolutely.
when you're aware of it, you're able
Right.
to accept it.
Right.
So, and acceptance does require intention and effort. Sometimes you don't want to accept things. So it's acceptance is also a very important thing that you need to cultivate. I agree with you totally.
And Suziani, she says love. Chris says my word is grace. Who else? Anybody else on there? Let's see. If anybody, I mean, I'd love to hear what that one word, I mean, that you even want to take away from today. Okay, so there's so much, Jamie. You know you're gonna have to come back, right? You know that, right? There's
I
so
would love
much.
to.
Okay, because there's just,
Mhm.
I don't want to, I just have to accept the fact that I just can't ask you everything I want and everything everybody else wants me to ask you. I just can't do it.
It's
It's
just
just
not enough time.
impossible. Huh?
Not enough time.
It's just, I don't know if I'll ever have enough time, but forgive me, world, because I just can't ask you everything that's going on in my mind and my heart and on this chat. So, and everything that I know you, I haven't even conceptualized that you could share. So just know that he's coming back. But let me see, what's on here? Authenticity. Madge says authenticity. Cool.
Yeah.
So, okay, so somebody wants to know, Madge wants, are you with anybody today?
Um, yes and no. Okay, this is the point where I start blushing.
Me too. But I promise, I asked him, can we ask you anything?
Yeah,
And he said yes, so go ahead. You asked
you
for
can ask
it.
me anything. Yeah, you can ask me anything. Um, I'm dating at the moment. Yeah, I'm dating. So I'm kind of I've since I left the monastery 6.5 years ago, I've had a few relationships, serious relationships. I'm going to say something now which is going to provoke a lot more questions, I'm sure. I've been married and divorced in that time as well. And I am currently kind of enjoying being single again. So I've kind of, since I left the monastery, I had a lot of learning to do about relationships and about women. So it's been kind of like a crash course
I guess,
in,
oh, that's interesting. Oh, that's a whole nother show. Can you
yeah.
imagine? It's like somebody who's been, I don't, in a coma, who
Yeah.
actually wakes up after 11 years and finds cell phones. Can you imagine how women
Well,
have changed in those 11 years?
well, that's right. I mean, I've had a crash course in just about every
Wow.
aspect of life. Crash course in technology, crash course in the latest Hollywood films, crash course in mobile phones, and crash course in women.
Wow.
So it's been intense, and I have since I left the monastery, I've deliberately put myself into those situations because I you know I'm very keen to meet the right person, to fall in love. It's really what I want in life. I've been, I've made a lot of mistakes. I think it's the sort of mistakes that everybody makes in relationships, and I'm learning through that process. N- Now after I've had a very intense couple of years with relationships, and a lot of pain involved, a lot of suffering. But now I'm at a point where I'm very clear about the kind of person I want to be with, and I'm very clear about the kind of person I need to be to attract that person. And that's what I'm working on at the moment.
Mm, gosh. I guess I want to know, so because of time, I want to know how, well, what was it that led up to you leaving the monastery?
Yeah, sure. So that was a big decision. That was the biggest decision of my life, even bigger than the decision to join the monastery, because it was, when I became a monk, I took vows, and the vows are lifetime vows. It's a lifetime commitment, and you don't break lifetime vows very lightly. So it was a big decision, and it took me a process took me like about 3 years in all to finally get to that decision of leaving the monastery. I had to consider so many things. I had to reflect. I had to go back and reflect again. And I consulted a lot with my superiors in the monastery who advised me and helped me and supported me. The basic reason why I left the monastery is because I wanted to fall in love. That was the basic reason, and hopefully come have a family. That was the basic reason. Um, there was also the combination of the pressure of being a monk, of living the disciplines of the monastic lifestyle is very, very intense, and that pressure combined with the desire to fall in love, that just made it impossible for me to continue living as a monk. So it was a long process, but eventually, after a lot of consultation with the divine, with myself, with my superiors, um, we kind of got to the point, realized that the best thing is go out into the outside world, fulfill the dreams that you have, fulfill the desires that you have, because if you don't, those desires will continue to hold you back. And once you fulfill those desires, then who knows, perhaps in the future I will come even closer to God.
So was there an over when you were asking the divine? You know, it's interesting because it took you a couple of years to get comfortable in that lifestyle, and then it took you a couple of years to get out of the lifestyle. So you really only, I mean, so comfortable,
Yeah.
you know, maybe as much as you were uncomfortable and then uncomfortable, or getting comfortable and then was there an overall message from the divine during that, something that you hold dear and near, something that you remember, something, something? Was there,
Uh,
Jamie?
I'm sorry, I just lost that,
Okay. Now,
your voice.
was there an overall message that you took away with you?
Yeah, 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 definitely. I mean, the it's difficult to put into words because in general, the messages from the divine are not in the form of words. They are in the form of kind of energy. It's it's the divine gives you grace, or it gives you energy. It gives you, the divine gives you experience of consciousness. That's the message. Those are the messages I get from the divine. But sometimes it's helpful to put into words because sometimes your human nature needs a bit of simple language to relate to the divine. So the strongest messages I was getting during that time when I left the monastery, the strongest messages I think I was getting is that the Divine Mother understands me. The Divine Mother understands who I am. She knows me. She knows that I will make decisions to break my vows. She knows that I will make other kind of mistakes, or she knows I may do silly things. She knows that I'm sometimes very naughty. She understands me, and she doesn't judge me for that. There is no judgment with the divine.
Mm-hmm.
It's total understanding and compassion.
Mm-hmm.
And she wants you, anyone, she wants you to grow. And if that means you need to go and do a particular thing with your life, then go and do it. That's her message. Go and do it. Don't hold back.
So what is, oh my, so what is your purpose, do you think? What is your purpose? Do you have a purpose? Because I've just realized I'm on a crusade. So do you have a purpose?
Yes. Yes, indeed. Yeah, this is a really great question, Marilyn, and I'm so happy you asked that because, in my opinion, there's a lot of confusion about this question. I My personal opinion is that our there are two ways to look at life purpose. On one hand, you can say your life purpose is to perform a particular function in this life, right? So maybe like your crusade of growing awareness and spreading the awareness of listening or whatever, that's like a function that you're observing at the moment. Um, and I think everybody can find that particular kind of purpose, the function they serve. Perhaps they're a parent, and that's their purpose. Perhaps they're a teacher. Perhaps they are doing something in their job. Um, but then I think there's a more simple way to look at life purpose, and which is the way I look at it, and that is my purpose in life is to unite and become one with the divine. That is my purpose. And in doing that, you will achieve every other possible purpose you can imagine. So whether you're a teacher, whether you're a mother, a parent, or whatever, because those things change over time. You know, once your children grow up and leave your home, then your role changes, your function changes. So in that sense, your purpose changes. But if you become one with the divine, if you unite your consciousness with the divine, then you will fulfill every other possible purpose you can imagine in your life. So that's my purpose.
All right. Wait, I think we have somebody on the phone, right? Hello.
Yes, it's me. It's
Okay.
Chris.
Yes.
Hi,
Hey,
Jamie. Hi,
Chris.
Marilyn.
Hi,
Hi,
Chris.
Anna. I have a very quick question that comes from Susie Annie on the chat. She has been very patiently waiting with the question. She wants to know a little bit more about the monastery. If it was a monastery where you were not allowed to talk, or if you were allowed to speak. And I understand there's some rules about that. So I wanted to be sure that that question got to Jamie today. So I will get off the phone and leave you all to finish up the show.
Thank you, Chris. So silence.
No problem.
Yeah. Jamie.
Great. Shall I go ahead and answer
Yeah,
that?
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris, and thank you for. So I'm sorry I didn't catch the name of the person who.
Susiani.
Susiani. Thank you, Susiani. Yeah. Good question, because I didn't really mention anything like that. I'll just quickly say that the monastery was a partially enclosed monastery. So what that means is that we were not allowed to leave the monastery. We had to stay within the bounds of the monastery, but it was partially closed. So it was open to the public. We had a lot of visitors coming. We were also allowed to have our family come to visit whenever they wanted. So it was not like completely closed, but we were not allowed to go out. We were allowed from time to time to go out with our family for the day. So if our family came to visit, we could go out and have an ice cream or something like that. So it was kind of flexible like that. It was not like a vow of silence. So we were able to talk normally and interact with each other in a kind of normal way. So there was no restrictions in that sense. The vows that we took were the Franciscan vows, which is poverty, chastity, obedience. So that means that we were not allowed to possess our own things or money. We were not allowed to have sex with anyone, which in the monastery is quite easy because you've only got these ugly other monks there. You don't want to have sex with them. No, thank you. And then the other vow was obedience, which basically means you have to follow the rules or the guidelines of the community. Yeah.
Amnan's got a good question I'm going to ask you in just a second. So, do you believe in God? So, is this, when you talk about the divine, do you refer to God?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, exactly. I don't use the word believe because I think that's misleading. I say I experience God,
Okay.
And I don't accept any teachings if I have not experienced it personally myself.
I think there is a difference between belief and experience. Belief can be something outside of yourself, whereas experience is something that you've actually, you've experienced, right?
Yeah, right, absolutely. And now belief, I use the word trust. I prefer to use the word trust because when it's like if you have a good friend, a close friend, you trust that person. Mm-hmm. So in the same way, I trust the divine. I trust Divine Mother. I trust that she is always with me and I can feel her presence. So it's not believing. I experience the Divine Mother in my daily life. So I don't need to say that I believe, but I do trust her. I trust that everything she does or every situation that she guides me into is for the benefit of my spiritual growth.
Gotcha. Well, we are, I can't believe we're almost out of time, but Jamie's going to be, he'll be back, I promise. He's going to be a regular coming backer. But before we go, I do want Jamie to talk a bit about himself, but I also want to let you know that Jamie is, as I opened up, he's one of our panelists on my show on Thursday called Skywire. And this week, coming up on Skywire, which is Thursdays at 11 a.m. on Google+, 11 a.m. Eastern Time, we're going to be talking about sacred sex and erotica and how we listen for that, to it, in it, to get into it, listen for the energy, whatever that brings us. And Jamie was saying that that's one of his favorite subjects. And so it's going to be a very interesting show. So you're going to get to hear Jamie and like 8, 9 other people chat about sacred sex, sacred intimacy. So please tune in to Google Plus on Thursday. But Jamie, so tell everybody where they find you, what you do, and what they'll find when they find you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I just quickly would like to say a really big thanks for everybody who's been listening and everyone who's been asking questions. I'm sorry if we didn't have time to get to your questions. I mean, I definitely will come back and answer any more questions. So yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for your contributions. So just quickly, if anyone wants to continue the conversation with me, just go over to my website, which is lifecoachinginterventions.com. Over there, lifecoachinginterventions.com, you can contact me. You can see my blog posts. I write frequently on topics to do with spirituality, to do with relationships, to do with general kind of psychological difficulties and challenges in life. So just go over there. You can get in touch with me. You can ask me anything you like. We can have a dialogue. I also have a fantastic, well, I think it's fantastic, a free video series about practical spirituality. There are 3 videos where I talk about tips and practical advice, how you can use your spirituality in the 3 main areas of your life, which is at home, at work, and in your intimate relationships. It's completely free. I've just put it up to kind of share the value of these things with people. So if you go over to my website, you can pick that up for free. And if you want to carry on chatting with me or asking me any questions, you can send me a message through my website. I'd love to hear from anyone.
Thank you so much, Jamie. Now you know why I love him so much and why I want him to come back. So we are just about out of time, but I have decided yesterday or the day before, I was driving in my car and the word crusade came to me. And I realized that, I have a personal mission to re-enchant the planet, that the planet is already enchanted, and my personal mission is to re-enchant it, that there's a layer of yuck. And through all the things that I do and all the people that I associate with, and all of my messages, everything that I do is about re-enchanting the planet. But I'm on a personal crusade to share listening and how listening affects us all and what we can do with listening. And so I have what I call a manifesto. Here we go. Where is it? There we go. It is up, down. What do I do with this? Oh, there we go. Up. There we go.
Down,
okay. Down. Well, anyway, it's a personal Okay. It's a personal declaration of independence. And it has all kinds of messages in here about listening. So if you are interested in having it, please send me an email to Marilyn at reenchantplanetearth.com. You'll see it above my head, or Marilyn at marilynshannon.com, and I'll send you a copy. But it's like a declaration of independence. It's a proclamation. So please join me in spreading the power of listening as deep as we can take it, because I have no idea where it takes us, but I know it takes us somewhere. So with that, I want to thank Jamie and everyone out there for being with us today, everyone on the chat. It's been an absolute delightful, beyond delightful show and experience for me. Now I've experienced Jamie even more. So come back again next week, and we'll share some more with you, and connect with Jamie, because I know it will be powerful for you, and I will do the same. So with that, have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. Our weekly lineup of call-in programs includes Computers 2K Now with Amnon Nissan, Health In with Debbie Bruck, Breaking Free with Marilyn Shannon, Lessons of Vietnam with NCVVI members, The Tanya Love Show, Your Healthy Pet with Gisela DiCarlo. And if you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it at www.nissancommunications.com. Sponsored by Atomus.com, makers of quality video recorders and converters for professionals. CarolinaApparel.com and DeltaForce.net.